Uh-oh.
It's time for the Early Bird Special. Bringing you the best stories from the world of sports and sports entertainment. Now, here are your hosts, Sparky and Burdick.
Well, good morning, Bakersfield and surrounding communities and everybody watching online and on YouTube. This is the Early Bird Special on this masterful Thursday. I'm Chris Burdick, and that's Sparky. Sparky, my friend, good morning.
Well, good Therapy Thursday.
Happy Therapy Thursday, my friend. Let them know what they got today.
We'll be starting the show off. We'll talk a little Masters since it's already starting. We'll talk NBA, of course. Everyone's talking Luka.
Naturally.
Plus we have a playoff breakdown. Of course, we're going to talk a little Tyreek Hill. He's back in the news. And, of course, it's not a positive thing. As a Dolphin fan, I'm sure I'll be sitting on that therapy couch. We'll talk baseball, and we've got all sorts of other things, miscellaneous. I'll play GM today, not Burdick. I was just
about to say, you are not going to be getting out of this one, my friend. You're going to be the one playing GM today with your team being on the block and in everybody's mouths today, since Tyreek Hill apparently can't keep himself out of trouble. Although there was nothing that actually took place, if you really look at it. But we'll get into that here after our talk about the Masters, which is live from Augusta, Georgia, starting right now. If you've been up since 4 o'clock this morning, probably watching this like a Ralph Bailey. I doubt actually Ralph is watching this. He's on the East Coast right now with Honor Flight, probably winging their way back at some point today. But as it sits right now, your favorite Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Colin Morikawa, Bryson DeChambeau, and John Rahm of the Live Tour also rounding off the top 5. Ludwig, I believe, is the 6th likely to win. And from what every expert I've been watching and everything I've been reading, and I do a lot of reading about golf, I like golf. I follow it as much as I can, especially to help you guys out in any way, shape, or form. Our boy Bolt Brady will be back tomorrow to give you his Masters picks and as well as his picks for the weekend. But at this point right now, don't expect one of the, major underdogs to come out winning this year, is from what everybody says. Scotty Scheffler is looking for his 3rd green jacket in 5 years. Rory's looking for his first in his career to finish the Grand Slam in golf. And if you don't know what that is, that's the U.S. Open. I'm sorry, I have it written down here, and I shouldn't just go off the top of my head. The Masters, the PGA Championship, the U.S. Open, and the Open Championship. Rory is just missing the Masters in order to finish that and join the illustrious group that has been able to do that. And the biggest question that everybody is talking about is, does golf miss Tiger Woods? Does the Masters miss the 5-time green jacket winner Tiger Woods? And arguably, yes.
Of course, it's Tiger.
I think it, just like in every other sport, it's just like saying basketball misses Michael Jordan. Of course you do. But these times come where you have to have somebody else step up into the limelight. And until Charlie is of age and joins the PGA Tour, because we all know that's going to happen at some point, or I shouldn't say that. You don't want to determine what a kid does with his life before he gets a chance. But Charlie has a very good chance of becoming the next, Tiger. And at this point, you're looking at guys like Scotty Scheffler and others to really fill that void and be the exciting winner for the PGA. I know there's been plenty of great winners this year already. I know Rory's won twice already in 2025, so he's got a lot of momentum going into this. I have a handful of underdogs, though, you should probably keep your eye on to bust into the top 10. And these are just 3 that I like that I've been reading and honestly keeping an eye on just because they've been heating up at the right time right here around Masters time, which everybody kind of says is the beginning, or the true beginning to the PGA Tour, because at the end of the day, the Masters is arguably the biggest event in golf. I think people would argue maybe the British Open would be up there, the Open Championship. I have always said the Masters in Augusta. There is nothing more illustrious, in my opinion, than the Augusta National golf course. It is fantastic. Every time you look at it, there's probably no greener part of America than that golf course. and it is amazing to look at every single year. But the 3 to look out for, I think that'll be jumping into the top 10 by the end of this, maybe making a run in days 1 or 2 to surprise you. One of them is already teed off and is actually doing that. He's leading the pack right now, so I'll start with him. Chris Kirk. He's had a rough career start, but he's sneaky good at Augusta. Very, very sneaky good. He's tied for 16th and 23rd in his career, which means he's not too far off from the top 10 ceiling. So I'd say he's going to be in the top area somewhere if you're looking for that. Lucas Glover being another one who's riding a hot putter right now, gained strokes in the last 6 of his last 8 starts in the PGA. And then Thomas Dentry. I'm also looking to have a solid Masters coming out. He could be a fluke. For some reason, this guy loves majors, and he plays very, very good at major courses. So I would very much look for him to continue that here at the Masters. But we will see. Maybe it's a fluke. But again, until we actually see him pull it off, I really can't say if it is or isn't yet. But personally, I'm just saying this just because I love to stir stuff up, especially in golf, because much like baseball, you have to create talking points with golf sometimes, because a lot of the time, the only time when you really want to talk golf is when something bad happens. Ergo, Tiger and his wife, Tiger in the car crash. I mean, I can go down the line with stuff that happened with Tiger. I really shouldn't, but we will. But for my personal belief, ride Bryson DeChambeau. I love Bryson DeChambeau. I love the way he plays. Obviously, Happy Gilmore-esque. He loves to crush the ball. If you follow him on social media, this is the only man I've ever seen hit a hole-in-one over his own house. It's incredible to watch. Now, it took him a very, very long time, but I've watched the entire series, and it is incredible that he actually just achieved this feat. But to no one's surprise, live golf player. And obviously, this is the only major that the PGA allows live golfers to come back and play. And it's for specific reasons. Either they're past champions or they've qualified in different ways in the PGA's mind. Bryson being one of those, as well as John Rahm, 2 of the best in the world. But we are in the midst of potentially a merger again, I guess, or at least partnership between live golf and PGA. It's not coming anytime soon. If you talk to anybody on the inside, in fact, a lot of these guys from the Live Golf Tour are very disappointed that Live hasn't really taken off like they were hoping it would. Just goes to show, much like AEW, doesn't matter how many ducats they can throw at your face. It matters how many they can pull in and how many people they can get to watch you. And
so is that what's holding up the merge?
A little bit.
Waiting for it to crash before they take over.
So just to give a little bit of an insight, the PGA did deny the latest deal presented by the PIF in this move, which would have essentially allowed the live players to come back to the PGA, and the governor of the PIF, Yasir, would be the new, I think it's co-chair of the bureau, which they vehemently said, nah, we're not going to do that. And it was actually going to allow Live to continue. Live was going to continue as its own thing, but it's not necessarily going to separate itself anymore. Like, you're going to have essentially just intermingled tournaments. PGA said no to that on March 31st, so they are still in negotiations. I think they're far apart because the PGA, much like the NCAA, does not like to give up anything if they don't have to. And PGA is in a weird spot that they get to dictate what is and isn't going to happen for golf in general, which is really I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know how you feel about that, Sparky. I know you don't follow golf very closely, but
not as close, especially since all the live drama. I have a couple of friends that go hard when it comes to golf. A lot of it is fantasy based.
Yes.
But I have a couple buddies that, send me stories. I'm like, dude, I don't care.
Our boy Dizzle up the hall here at Hot 94.1 is an avid fantasy golfer enthusiast. He's been breaking down to me how that works because I was very curious how this actually works. And for those of you who don't know, basically there's 2 different ways to go about it. You can have a snake draft, which is how you can easily get the higher up guys. So basically you'll have 3 people in a group. One of you starts, say, picks Scotty Scheffler. Next guy picks
just like
Rory. And and then you would go opposite, just like a traditional snake draft, and then you get, I think, 4 or 5 golfers, maybe up to 6, and whoever's points are the highest, you win the pot and all that stuff. That's pretty interesting.
It reminds me of what I've done with NASCAR fantasy.
Yeah, there you go. Like if you've ever done something like that, it's just gets interesting when you go into these sports that have, I guess, a one-man team.
Yeah, which personally, as a person that doesn't follow golf as much as the norm,
Right.
it is better to jump into the fantasy side of it because it keeps you watching.
I've said that about all sports. Honestly, if you are somebody that wants to get into sports in general, even if it's football, baseball, basketball, but you really just can't get into watching it, jump into fantasy football. I think that's, or I'm sorry, whatever fantasy
whatever
sport
sport
that you're trying to get into, because I promise you, when you really invest yourself in the athlete itself, you really start investing yourself in
it goes back. I mean, the similar thing is with March Madness brackets. We have 20 employees over at my job, and 18 of them don't watch college basketball, but they'll be watching March Madness. You know what I mean? So it brings in the group.
I mean, those, especially college sports, it's intimidating because there are so many teams and you have to pay attention to all of them at a point. Conferences are 20 teams deep sometimes. Like, it's just way too much for the casual fan to really get behind.
100%. And is the other side of fantasy golf, is it kind of like a prop almost, where you have it like a salary and you can only pick
exactly
3 or 4 players?
You have a salary base that is determined before you start the draft, and then each player has a specific amount of money. So again, your Scotty Schefflers could be like $750,000, while your lower, we'll say Chris Kirk's, since I brought him up, it would be maybe $150,000, and you have to wage your roster based on how much money you are given. So
you either go hard with one of your favorite golfers and then try to fill the spots, or
you try to go
Randy's taught me that too. You kind of got a guy it's hot but not too hot, so he can still get a couple guys he likes. So I mean, it's fun.
And so that's something you feel like you can get yourself into if you love playing yourself. I mean, if you're a person that loves playing GM like I do, I love when a video game allows me to play GM. The WWE games do that very well. Madden does that very well.
We'll get into that in future shows.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Like, this is a good way to do that with golf. And it's a good way to, again, if you're trying to get into this, if you are interested in the Masters, because it really is a very beautiful thing to watch. Now, I get it, golf is boring at points, but there are certain situations that make it very, very exciting. And when, again, you invest in one of the golfers, say a Bryson DeChambeau, or let's talk about that. The Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka rivalry, or just hatred, I guess you can talk about. That could get you interested as well. There are talking points regardless of what you really want to see. So if this is what you are looking for in terms of the Masters, I would jump into it. But at this point, obviously, it's a little too late to jump into for the Masters. So you may have to wait till the next major tournament. But Sparky, before we go to break real quick, I just have to point this out, because this is why I brought up that I feel like Bryson is going to win this. I do think that he is riding hot, and I think it's time for him to take that next step in his career. But could you imagine the just accumulative head blowing up of the PGA if a Live Tour guy won this entire thing, your most illustrious tournament of the year, and it starts out the year for you, and it starts out that a Live Tour guy just stole it away from one of your guys?
That would be incredible, and I probably would it would definitely stir up the pot, and maybe, just maybe, it would help push these merge together.
I was thinking that, but does that help the merge or does it hurt the merge? Because if I'm the Live Tour and my guy just ran away with the Masters, and this is the equivalent of a UFL team coming in and winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Or
AEW winning the champ.
Exactly. Pinning any of major championships across the board, you name it. It doesn't matter, but I'd use that in negotiations. Be like, well, you need our guys.
Yeah. And definitely after the break, we want to hear from you. Text in if you're a golf fan, you're watching the Masters, then you've probably been up for a couple hours. Text in your top golfers who you think's going to win. Plus, after this break, we'll hear from Scott Van Pelt and some other golf experts on how they feel this Masters is gonna finish up right here. The early bird special on we're also streaming ESPN Bakersfield.com and live video streaming on the early bird special YouTube channel right here on ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM. Welcome back. This is the Early Bird Special. I'm Chris Curtis. That's Sparky. We got to get some of these talking points and stories coming out of the Masters real quick before we get done. Starting with Scotty Scheffler. Scotty is looking for his third green jacket in about 5-6 starts, if I'm not mistaken. He's been arguably one of the most dominant golfers at the Masters, has never fallen out of the top 20 while playing in this tournament, and is easily the runaway favorite at, I believe, plus 440 to win the whole dang thing. He will tee off. I'm not actually 100% sure. I know he's part of the middle group here in the morning, so he should be teeing off here momentarily, if I'm not mistaken. And arguably, it's just too easy for this guy to win this dang tournament every year. But let's hear Andy North and what he believes is the winning path for Scotty Scheffler once again.
He's really trending in the right direction after coming off that hand injury over Christmas. He still has a couple of really close calls, a second, a third. He's been finishing the top 25 every start so far this year. His ball striking is not quite where it was last year, but now you're comparing him to a guy who finished number one in every single statistic last year. So he's still doing just fine. This is a golf course. He understands how to play. He's a great iron player. And that is so important this week. You've got to get the ball in the right positions on these greens. And if he does that, he's putting the ball maybe better so far this year than he has over the last couple of years. So if he plays like Scotty Scheffler can play, watch out.
Now, golf is mental. I would say it's about 90% mental. But Scotty is, for those of you who are wondering, is Scotty just physically better than a lot of these other golfers? Not necessarily. Scotty is just a very, very good handyman, as some people would call him. He's just really good about knowing which club to use at what time and how to adapt in certain situations. And that's how he wins the Masters so often, is he is, as Mr. North said, a fantastic golfer with his irons. He will easily get down the course with maybe one or two strokes if he's put into the right situations. And when it comes to the Masters, he seems to have mapped out perfect slots for where he should put the ball every single time. So
I know it hasn't been the most dominant start of the season that we're usually used to, but missing time and, playing his way back into, what he's used to.
Mhm.
Do you think that hurts him with the Masters?
Not at all. Not at all. Honestly, as we just heard, he's been striking the ball a little bit less than he usually does, but he's still putting himself in winning situations.
And it's still Scheffler.
He's still Scheffler. As long as he is consistently going to continue that and put himself in winning situations, and obviously have the caddy he's had since, I believe he's been a kid. It's just going to keep going for Scotty. I think it's going to take a very, very bad loss in some tournament for Scotty to lose this momentum. So I do not see that happening, which is bad news for Rory, because Rory McIlroy, who has had a very illustrious career in the PGA, arguably was supposed to be the heir apparent after Tiger steps away, because Tiger hasn't fully stepped away from golf just yet. But he is still chasing that first green jacket. And it's make or break for Rory this year if he doesn't do it, in my opinion. And I believe same as Mr. North as well. Let's hear from him.
I truly do. He's had two really good wins so far this year at Pebble and then at the Players. I was lucky enough to walk around and call one of the rounds at the Players, and he's putting the ball better than I think I've seen him over the last 4 or 5 years. He looks really good on the greens. He looks comfortable, and the numbers point that out. His numbers are better than they've been over the last few years, but I think he's passing the eye test. He looks more relaxed. He's talked about how he's in such a good place in his life. He's probably mentally better than he's ever been. So that's a scary combination. The way he drives the golf ball on this golf course, it's a huge advantage for him.
Rory has been playing well. He does notoriously well at the Masters, regardless of not being able to win. He's been in the top 10 7 times, if I'm not mistaken. 7 of his finishes have been in the top 10. So he's been right there every single time.
And looking at experts and, the odds and all that, he's up there, up there with Scheffler.
Last time he was in this tournament was 2023. He missed the cut. Now,
early, right?
Yes, early. And I believe it was for injury reasons, if I remember back that far. I've slept since then. Forgive me. But at this point right now, the closest he's gotten is second, which was in 2022. If he does not win this year, you're on the career downtrend. You're not gaining years back. He hasn't been gaining strokes back like some of these golfers have. Although he's been winning at Pebble, it's a good momentum builder for this tournament. That's why I'm saying if he doesn't win this year, that could be a momentum destroyer.
I know he's playing great golf right now, so
yes,
hopefully he can lean that into his jacket. But
I still am going with Bryson DeChambeau to win the whole dang thing. I just think it's his time to actually pull this off, but we will see. I have hope that Rory will win. He is second on the board right now at plus 700. I'm sorry, plus 650 now. But regardless, it is just, in my opinion, it's a make or break year for him when it comes to winning this dang tournament. You've been this close. It's going to be not a career destroyer. I shouldn't say that, but more of just a mental problem over your head. Like, he most likely will not believe he can win this tournament if he doesn't pull it off this time.
And I know we'll dig into a lot more tomorrow when we have our handicapper Bolt Brady on, and we'll talk a lot more of that. And I wanted to bounce off before we get out of here with sleepers.
Yes, absolutely.
So
I heard 3 of mine, but what have you heard, my friend?
I've heard Patrick Reed, the 2018 champ, which is a reach.
Mm-hmm.
I've also I wanted to play this clip from Van Pelt that's talking not only the live players that could have a chance, but just golfers that are under the radar.
All of them. Honestly, all of them. I believe DeChambeau will play well. I believe Rahm will play well. He won here a couple of years ago. And this becomes a longer conversation that I know we don't have time for, just about how people consume live or don't. I just don't know people that casually consume it. And I'm not making a value judgment against that tour. I just don't hear people talking about it. That said, there's a bunch of excellent players out there. I expect Koepka to play well just because every major he seems to. Hell, Phil a couple of years ago finished second. So do I think any of them play well, Tony? I believe all of them will, because there are so many of those guys. Neiman, I didn't even mention his name. He could win here and it wouldn't be a shock at all. So I expect a lot of the familiar names to be in the mix from Thursday on. In the end, I just think it's Rory's time.
Well, I mean, he just said at the end there he thinks Rory's going to win it all, but obviously
Set all that up just to say Rory at the end,
right? And then I don't know why he's talking up the live golfers when he's just going to say Rory wins at the end. It doesn't matter. Lakers in 5. No, I'm just kidding. At this point, I would love to see a live golfer win, but only again because I would love to see the world of golf have some sort of stir up with all of this stuff going on. But personally, I'm going to ride with Bryson DeChambeau. And as everything I have heard and seen and read, don't ride an underdog this year. It's not going to happen the way you think it's going to happen. It's a great thing to think about and hope for, but this isn't March Madness. This is the Masters.
This is the Masters.
The Masters does not get taken over very often by somebody who does not deserve to win the Masters.
Where everything is still staying the price if you're going to the Masters.
Yes, actually, I was going to get into this next. Also, if you're headed out to Augusta, as Sparky is saying, the concession stands haven't changed prices in God knows how long.
You can still get a quarter hot dog?
Yep, apple slices for $2. Like, it's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. Like, that is awesome. Now, you know where they're going to get you is the memorabilia.
Yes.
They get millions upon millions of dollars every year in memorabilia for the Masters because people just go just for the shirts, obviously, and just to say you were somewhere close to Augusta National, because God knows most of us won't be able to play the full course. However, for those of you who are actually wondering if you could potentially play somewhere near Augusta National, actually you can. Believe it or not, Tiger Woods and his design team are in the works of creating, I should say, a 9-hole short course that will be accessible to the public at some point in the years to come. I believe that they're also opening up a training facility there as well that should be open to the public in 2028. However, I do believe that the 9-hole course should be done by 2026, 2027. So if anybody has dreams of playing at least adjacent to Augusta National, you might have a chance to go play at the Patch when it is done, because that's what I read is that it's supposed to be accessible to everybody. Would you go play?
I would try.
I would love to.
I don't know what I play is actually called playing.
Mm-hmm.
I've only played a few times, and I will tell you I'm much better on the Wii. But I know
I'm not a great golfer either. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to be hacking up some stuff, but if just to play adjacent to Augusta, I would love to.
I mean, I love to play, and it's just the whole day of golfing is just the best part, even if you're a horrible golfer. But before we go away from golf, I know the Happy Gilmore sequel is coming out.
It is. I'm very excited for this movie. Very excited.
I've heard a lot of people that are pumped about it.
I'm actually going to be very disappointed if Bryson DeChambeau isn't in it at some point, just as a little nod, because obviously it's, for those of you who don't know what the plot of this movie is, if you are familiar with the original Happy Gilmore, Adam Sandler plays a hockey player turned golfer who's trying to win money to save his grandmother's house.
Gilmore,
I don't know what's wrong with you. I'm sorry.
Where are you at?
It's arguably his best movie, but this movie is supposed to be a direct sequel to that, coming 20 years too late, but we'll get into that in a different day. Where he is apparently forced to return to the tour for one last run. I'm not sure exactly why. They haven't said in the trailer, thank God. But because I don't know about you, Sparky, but that's what bugs me about a lot of trailers these days. That gives away the entire movie.
It takes the core of the movie out.
Yeah, and it's dumb. Like, what's the point of all of that? You know what I mean? Like, why not just wait a couple weeks and let us find out why
let
this
people
person's
watch
going
it.
through some turmoil. Just, draw me in with some crazy scenes. That's what the trailer should do.
Well, we got some miscellaneous baseball news, and then we'll sit on the couch, the therapy couch.
Yes.
If you have anything you want to get off your chest, there is no judgment here. You can call, you can text it in if you don't want to go on the air anytime. 661-842-2000 right here on ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM. Welcome back. It's the early bird special.
It is right before Mac and Cheese Fest coming up, I believe, next Saturday, the 19th. And it's a new location will be over at the Kern County Fairgrounds this year. This verdict is working out the wire. We're good.
We had some double audio there for a second. I apologize. But we are joined by Brian Studeville of The Vault on Ming Avenue,
Woo!
as well as Jeff Massioni of
Well,
US
before we
Foods.
jump in, I just took my wife to the Vault last week.
Did you really?
I love the decor. I went to the bathroom first, and I looked up from the urinal, and I was on the mirror that I was most wanted, bank robber. But no, my wife is a big fan of the Gordon Ramsay shows. So the first thing she saw on the menu was the beef Wellington, the little beef Wellington bite, which was incredible. The food is awesome. And if anybody doesn't know, it's the old Chase Bank off Ming Avenue, right across from the old Toys R Us. I'm just aging myself while we're talking. But the Vault,
No, millennials remember Toys R Us. Trust me, we still cry when we think of that damn draft.
if you haven't been, I would definitely tell you to go to the Vault. It's great food, great environment, and we enjoyed it.
So talk about the Vault real quick, because you guys are new, and not a lot of people may know where you guys are at, where you guys are about. So explain what you guys do over there.
901 Ming Avenue,
Okay.
the old Chase Bank building, Washington Mutual, one other one.
Mhm.
Got the old banking theme in there, so it's an old school vibe.
And obviously, people like Sparky get pointed out as bank robbers sometimes, because obviously he's a sketchy-looking dude. Look at him; he's got tattoos, he got no hair on his head. Obviously, this guy robs banks,
We
right?
let everybody in.
You had a bandana on your head that day, didn't you?
No,
Oh, come on! You have to roll into
it
it.
was awesome.
Well, that's fantastic, man. That's a really cool thing. I like that. I like when restaurants do something different and bring people in. I assume this is a family-friendly restaurant and all that type of thing too. Awesome.
Family owned.
Fantastic. Well, that's fantastic. What did you guys bring us today for mac and cheese?
Got your little creation from Woodstone Pizzeria. I don't know if we have on California Avenue.
Which is a fantastic pizzeria, by the way. Lived up the street from it and
Thin crust
went there
is it.
frequently. Trust me. Oh yeah.
So this is a pizza macaroni and cheese. Got some pepperoni in there, some garlic.
For people to see on YouTube. This is what you're in for at the Mac and Cheese Fest. If you haven't gotten your tickets, they are available at Eventbrite. If I'm not mistaken, I think VIP tickets are still available. I would ask Jen Bowden about that, but she walked away on me.
And she's going
One
100.
sec.
And the pizza place, that is the one with all the different root beers, right?
We have a kind of like a tap handle.
Yes.
just sort of
Yes, we love that place, man. You guys are just hitting these local spots.
A little bit. That was fantastic. Oh my god. Coming back to life. I'm a big pizza guy, and that is fantastic. Oh my god. No,
Right.
it is very true.
Well, his face is turning red.
Sorry. No, yeah, I'm gonna have to recompose myself. I apologize.
come back to life a
A little bit. So what all is in this besides the obviously pizza creation? Who came up with it? Like, how'd you guys come up with this idea?
morning.
Really?
Jeff said yesterday that I was coming on this show, so I said I better make some mac and cheese.
Something.
So I bought this new pan.
It's fantastic, man. I mean, obviously, this is what you guys are going to be bringing to the Mac and Cheese Fest. Are you guys bring anything else as well, like maybe a drink or something? I know people bring. I know Casey Steakhouse usually will support with some sort of alcoholic beverage.
I know there'll be beers out there. We're not bringing beers.
No beers?
We're probably going to do another macaroni and cheese version from the vault.
Ooh, okay. No secret. We can't
Like
rob
a
the
surf
vault.
and surf or something.
Oh, there you go. Throw something a little different in there. I like that. Okay. Well, fantastic, gentlemen. I mean, again, go out to the Mac and Cheese Fest April 19th at the Kern County Fairgrounds. Go check out the guys at the Vault and at Woodstone Pizzeria, obviously on California Avenue. Is there anything else you guys want to pump up? I mean, I know the Vault is brand new. Is there any events you guys are doing over there to kind of get people, get people's attention, rather, to get over there to the
Doing a
Vault?
killer happy hour soon.
Yeah, I got a
All right.
happy hour coming up, some lunch specials coming up. We do a lot with the Bakersfield Firefighters Burn Foundation, so we have their light up in the night event coming up. So
Okay,
a lot of good things,
fantastic.
a lot of good things.
Awesome.
Well, definitely check out our Instagram page. I'll be sure to tag the Vault in Woodstone Pizza on our page so you can see a little bit more. If you haven't been down there, I'm telling you, as a witness, I've smashed a bunch of food there. Like I said, I would start off with those beef Wellington bites. That's just
What,
not
what,
what I
okay,
would
yeah, what
say.
else is on the menu that people can be aware of? Because obviously beef Wellington is fantastic.
Yeah,
But what
it's
else do you guys serve?
steak, seafood, pasta. We have salads. We have sandwiches, pizzas, of course.
Okay.
I went with the
Calzones.
salmon, which was incredible, and they had great drinks. I know my wife, before we left, had a couple old fashioned, and we had a great time. It's a great venue. Well, I would definitely check it out if you haven't been.
I
But
love this guy.
I'm telling you, it's right around the corner from my house, so I don't have to
I
drive
can't wait to go
downtown.
check it out. This is the first I've heard of it, but I mean, obviously, I love when new restaurants open up. I know Bakersfield loves when new restaurants open up. We
Yeah,
always
that's
frequent to them as soon as you know where these places are. And honestly, this one sounds fun. This
Yeah,
sounds
these are
different. Honestly, I love the bank robber vibe. That's really cool. Like, I think that's just something that no one's really touched yet.
Yeah, we have some musicians, piano players, and
Oh, awesome. So live music and stuff
Yep.
frequently. That's really cool. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We really appreciate it. And again, for anybody who's looking for tickets, go to Eventbrite. Go check out the Mac and Cheese Fest on April 19th at the Kern County Fairgrounds. Go check out this amazing pizza mac and cheese, which dang near got me to just drop out of this chair during the show.
Well, coming up after this break,
I appreciate that, my friend.
we'll have
Appreciate that.
our therapy Thursday if Burdick can get through
Somehow
this break.
compose myself. Yes.
But we
Jeff,
appreciate
Brian,
it,
thank you
guys.
guys so much for coming in. We really appreciate it. And once again, go to Eventbrite, check out tickets for the Mac and Cheese Fest coming up in about a week. You got a week to go pick up your tickets if you haven't yet. But we'll get to a break real quick, pay some bills. On the other side, you'll hear Therapy Thursday right here on the Early Bird Special, 101.1 FM, 12:30 a.m., and streaming online on YouTube at the Early Bird Special.
Sometimes it feels like it's just been building up inside me and I'm just going to explode if I don't get this off my chest.
What? Get help. No, come on, you love it. I hate it. It's great. It works every time. It's humiliating. Do you have a better plan? No, we're doing it. We are not doing get help.
Get help! Please! My brother's dying! Get help!
Because I've cried 1,000 times, I'm going to cry some more.
I'm not crazy!
Okay, listen up, everybody. Turn up your volumes. Announcement.
Let me talk to you!
Why you look so stupid?
I did it for the people. I did it. Shut your mouth, you thong-wearing fatty.
Are you ready to order or do you want to wait for your friend to get here? Can you not see that I'm here with the most beautiful person in the entire world? Sir, that's your iPhone with the camera facing forward. You're alone. You're so alone.
Welcome to Therapy Thursday with the Early Bird Special. I'm Sparky.
I'm Burdick, and Sparky's on the couch again.
Yeah, once again. And this time, being a Dolphins fan is enough to sit in therapy. But when your Pro Bowl wide receiver is constantly in the media,
Preach it, my friend.
and not for positive things, we end the season on a just a sour taste in my mouth, and then Tyreek giving up halfway through the game, and we were playing the Jets. To throw it out there, we were playing the Jets, made Aaron Rodgers look like the Aaron Rodgers that was actually good, and then Tyreek throws his little hissy fit and says, I'm out. And then a couple of weeks later, of course, he talks to his agent. And he's like, no, you're not. Look at that salary. Look at that contract. You're not going anywhere. And now, as a longtime Dolphin fan, again, as soon as we got off the air yesterday, my social media is blowing up. Oh, police responded Tyreek's home. Oh my gosh. And this time, no one was arrested.
No.
Thankfully, no one was hurt.
No, apparently mom called on Tyreek and his wife, mom being mom-in-law, during a dispute.
She said she was afraid for her daughter, which
honestly, knowing Tyreek's past, I would be too.
Of course. I totally understand both sides of it, but where is that line as an athlete where you neither sit in timeout and think about what you've done,
right,
or you just grow and mature? Yeah, this guy has how many kids? This fool is supposed to be a role model to his, not only as an athlete, but to his own kids.
True.
And not only reading more into it, I saw that he threw the girl's laptop at her, and it was just a bunch of other things. But we're going to get into the second hour where I'll play GM and Burdick will throw some trade offers that a lot of are rumored to be around draft day or during the draft,
right?
Which I wouldn't be shocked, but I will tell you, as a Dolphin fan, I don't think they do anything.
You probably aren't wrong on that, my friend. Just because it's Tyreek Hill
and I think how much they put into Tyreek and how much they put into Tua, I think this is like a make it or break it year for Coach. I think if they don't better from last year, if they're not over 500, they don't win a playoff game, I think you can see that house just fall apart.
Oh, absolutely. But see, is it bad of me when I read this story at first and read that there was no charges filed that I immediately just said, oh, the cops learned from the first incident at the beginning of the season?
The headlines are headlines. When I read it first, that I heard that the cops were saying, oh, there was assault going on. And I was like, dude, I hope he didn't put his hands on this woman.
Oh, I bet he will. But I'm not sorry. I apologize. I got distracted. I apologize. That's not what I meant.
Is getting to you?
We had somebody walk by who said hi, and I got stupid. I bet he wouldn't.
I hope not.
Yeah,
again,
we hope he would not have.
He's done it in the past.
History has shown that there have been incidences in which Tyreek has lost his cool. God, that was so bad. I'm so sorry. We had a distraction that was on me. 100%.
But personally,
that's not what I meant.
Personally, I think, as just an organization, obviously this is not a good look
No, but again,
But you know what you got when you signed him.
Yeah, and also it begs the question, how good can you be, and your team will just kind of look the other way at what you do off of the field. Like how good Tyreek Hill is on the field kind of outweighs the outcry outside of it. Although you really shouldn't do that with athletes because it's a really bad look for your organization. But I, again, kind of understand because Tyreek Hill is a generational wide receiver. And
Mhm.
again, nothing really happened. Technically, it was just a shouting match that got called by mom.
Which
Like,
we've all been in relationships and it happens.
yeah, I mean,
But somebody's got to be the mature adult.
right.
And
Well, what apparently transpired as well is that Tyreek threw down a laptop and snatched his baby out of the
the
baby
4-month.
mama's hand.
Yeah, the 4-month.
And obviously that was not a good look. And he walked away with the baby, walking outside to the balcony.
Which they're on the 35th floor.
Right.
Just to throw a picture out there.
Yeah. So
It wasn't like the
mom
Michael
is-
Jackson thing, was it?
No, I don't believe so. At least I hope not.
Because I don't want to see those pictures being
No.
released.
And then I think that's honestly what mom was worried about as well, was that we had a Michael Jackson incident coming and baby was about to get
Put down
dangled
blanket.
over the
Put
balcony.
down blanket.
God, don't put down blanket. No, bad choice of words.
Oh,
But
man.
anyways, yeah, and this entire situation is a bad look for the Miami Dolphins. I have to agree with you 100%. But what really happens out of this? Most likely nothing. Now, I know we said we jumped to the GM mode afterwards, but honestly, we got plenty of time to do it right now, my friend. If you
Well,
want to
I
do it
will
now.
say the Dolphins did come out with the press release this
Oh,
morning.
did they really?
And they said the case has been closed. Nobody was injured. No charges were filed.
So
the only
nothing's gonna
thing that
happen.
was filed this morning was official that she served him with the divorce paperwork.
Right.
And this is, I want to say, baby mama 4 or 5. So he's been through this before.
And again, history shows that potentially it might be you, Tyreek. You might be the toxic trait.
I think we need to swap seats, and I think Tyreek needs to sit down on this therapy
I think
couch
so, too.
and get this crap off his chest before he blows up and hurt somebody, probably himself, especially when it comes to his bank account.
Hopefully not himself, especially with the way a lot of these things go. I know outcries come in emotional situations, and obviously the man has a slew of stars, and last thing we want to see is what we've seen the last couple seasons with a lot of these athletes and just reckless driving or reckless actions. So I'm hoping, as same as you, that is not the case. Apparently the two had been going through couples counseling for a long time, trying to fix their situation. Obviously didn't work out the way they were hoping, and the divorce papers were filed. So I also worry that this could affect his play next year, because obviously emotional stuff off the field definitely factors into how you play on the field. So hopefully Tyreek can, like you said, reach a therapy couch at some point and just get a lot of this off his chest and start growing.
Grow up, be the dad that those kids need. But I'm glad that nobody got hurt. Nobody was injured. And hopefully they can turn that page and do what's best for the children and themselves.
As long as he doesn't go back to the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm okay. I just cannot get that combination of Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. God, no, please, no.
I don't think he's going anywhere personally, but if I'm sure, just like any sport or any GM, if the right offer comes and it looks right on paper, I know the one thing that would benefit Miami by trading him is cleaning up that salary cap and getting some much needed money after paying him, Waddle, and Tua last offseason. That's why you don't hear the Dolphins signing too many people this year. But with Armstead retiring, and we're still cleaning up the book. I know a couple players took pay cuts, just like I read breaking news. Alan Lazard from the Jets, who was set to make $11.5 million this year, cut it down to $2.5 million with the base minimum to stay with the Jets.
Absolutely. I mean, good. It's a good look for Alan Lazard as well. Obviously, you want to stay true to the team, not necessarily to the player. I think the problem with with Adams has done now, especially with his combination of needing certain quarterbacks, is you now have a stigma over your head as a wide receiver that you probably can't play with other quarterbacks. And Alan Lazard was swiftly becoming a player like that with Aaron Rodgers because he apparently could not get away from the guy.
Or he probably knows something that he probably doesn't want to go to Pittsburgh.
No. Well, I don't think a lot of people want to go to Pittsburgh.
Or he knows something. And I was just going to say
speaking of which, the big night out last night, no sign of Aaron Rodgers.
Good.
So Pat was not lying at all. Although we did see a Paul Skeens throw that missed the zone. I'll get into that on the other side of the break.
And I got to throw out some love to Sammy and Gabe. I know he's driving his boy to school right now and they're listening. Big love to the Abiyawi family. Much love. Keep it tuned in. We got the second hour of the Early Bird Special coming up right after this break.
And welcome back. Early Bird Special, hour 2.
It's going to get loud in here, baby.
My bad. I didn't realize you were looking down. I'm Burdick, that's Sparky. And we have plenty of NFL, NBA, and MLB to run down, so we'll hopefully get that done in this last hour for you. Starting with Sparky, we already kind of teed it up in the last segment with your Therapy Thursday, but Tyreek Hill is turning heads again in the bad way. So we're going to put you in the GM chair today, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
As the general manager of your Miami Dolphins.
I'll play Chris Greer.
There you go. I got five potential trades for Tyreek Hill. You ready?
Shoot him.
The first one for you coming from the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys would receive Tyreek Hill, your 2025 fifth-round draft pick. That'll be the 156th overall pick. You would receive the 2025 second-round pick. That's the 44th overall pick. And their 2026 fourth-round pick. The second trade would be the Green Bay Packers. Tyreek Hill, obviously being part of the trade, and a 2025 fifth-round draft pick, the 156th overall, the same one you would give to the Cowboys, for Romeo Doubs, a 2023 third round draft pick, the 87th overall, and another fourth round draft pick for 2026.
Okay. That's much better.
The third draft would be the Las Vegas Raiders, also receiving the same picks, although the fifth round pick you would be giving them would be the 151st pick, so the one 5 picks earlier, as well as a 2026 fifth round pick.
So 2 fifth rounders.
Two
and
fifth
Tyreek.
rounders, but one for the 2025, one for 2026. What you would get in return would be a 2025 third round pick, the 68th overall, a 2026 third round pick, and wide receiver Trey Tucker.
Who?
Exactly. The Chargers are the fourth team, who would obviously receive Tyreek Hill and the 156th overall pick in the fifth round, the same as the Packers and the Cowboys. You would receive a 2025 second round pick at the 55th overall choice and a 2026 fourth round pick. It's kind of weak on that one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then the last one will be the Washington Commanders, who would receive Tyreek Hill and a 7th round pick in this year's draft at 253 overall for a 2025 second round pick, 61st overall, and a 2025 6th round pick at 206 overall.
I mean, as a GM, I would try to negotiate a better second pick with Washington. If not, I mean, personally, I'm not trading Tyreek until after this season or maybe mid-season, depending on how Miami looks in the first 8 games or
and
so.
Maybe how he comes out playing this season.
Exactly. And ideally, I'm scratching my head on the Vegas one and the Chargers. I'm probably looking deeper into that Green Bay trade with Daubs and the third and the fourth.
That seems to
That's
me
pretty
like
ideal.
the ideal one would be getting somebody like Romeo Doubs, who has flashes of being a good wide receiver 2 for your team, at least.
Or I'm trying to swap out Daubs for a corner or an offensive lineman. I don't think we swap Tyreek out for a receiver. I think we would draft a receiver this season. We've already got Waddle. I know a lot of wide receivers could fit perfectly into this offense. I mean, you see it in Frisco with the same type of offensive mind or play calling. But if I was going to trade Tyreek, that's the one I would be looking at. I would be looking at either upping the Washington to maybe a second and a fourth, and probably a 2026 fourth rounder, not this year. Probably get that second round for this year. Or I'm trying to talk into a defensive player, whether it's a secondary type player, a corner, or a safety, because I know Miami needs it. Or I'm looking at offensive line.
Now, just playing devil's advocate here, since we're talking about taking a high second round pick, then why not take the Cowboys pick, which gets you the 44th overall?
It's Dallas, and I know I don't want to deal with Jerry, and I know he's going to try to rob me somehow, some way. But I do like. I mean, I would jump on a second and fourth, but I would try to get somebody in return. Like I said, going back to the offensive line or somebody in the secondary.
Well, I mean, I agree with you in terms of I think the Green Bay Packers trade was definitely the best out of those 5. So I would have to agree that moving forward, that one would probably be your best bet. But what do you guys think? Do you agree with Sparky? Do you not agree with Sparky? Text in right now, 661-842-2000. Let us know what deal you would have taken for Tyreek Hill. And honestly, let us know if you think that's a little bit of a low asking price, because I know a lot of people are getting fed up with the fact that first-round draft picks don't get traded for players anymore, especially big-name players like Tyreek Hill.
Well, we just got 2 messages. One was saying it was talking about Tyreek. He said that guy's garbage. Kansas City doesn't want him anymore. Go Chiefs. So I'm guessing that is coming from the Red Kingdom.
Yeah, and maybe our boy Fantasy Frank out there.
Probably.
More than likely.
And then the other one was asking, what did Debo's trade go for? What did Washington give up for? So
that's a good
while
question.
you're doing that, I'm going to bring up a quick story. So TJ Watt's cryptic Instagram photo yesterday had some Steeler fans scratching their head. You know, his latest, he is on his last year of the contract with Pittsburgh, and he posted a photo of himself throwing up the peace sign from a game earlier in the season where he was walking off the field without his helmet and just, saying peace out.
Yeah, let's calm down, Steeler fans. You're not losing your boy. They're just taking their time signing him, and he doesn't.
And a lot of players do this, so that's why I wanted to bring it up, because there's always that
It's the world of social media.
cryptic
It's the
types.
world of people wanting to be passive aggressive, because being passive aggressive gets you what you want, and especially in the world of sports. Because if a athlete lashes out and says, I demand, we immediately throw them in the trash can.
Yes.
We aren't cool with people demanding stuff, but we're cool with people being passive aggressive and saying, I deserve this.
And I think a lot of these big name defensive players
Yeah.
are trying to throw their name in after Myles Garrett gets this big contract, after he shows his unhappiness. And I think it's going to be the new thing, the new norm for these players when they're, on their last year of the contract. I mean, I was still surprised that Bosa was let go of the Chargers, and I 100% thought he was going to the Niners to play with his brother. So when he swapped out and went to Buffalo,
and you have to deal with him now 2
that's
times
fine.
a year.
He plays half the season. So
That's
I'm
true.
hoping it's the second
And
half that he doesn't play.
Exact reason right there is why he's no longer in LA.
Probably.
But at this point, you're right. I mean, it's just going to depend on how much money they're going to pay him, because now with the Myles Garrett deal, he's getting more than Myles. As much as I love Myles Garrett, it's TJ Watt. TJ Watt is the best defensive player in the NFL. Especially since Aaron Donald has left.
He's entering his final year of his 4-year, $112 million contract. He'll be a free agent after this season.
He's been very vocal that he doesn't want to play on a 1-year deal. I mean, the McAfee show talks about it ad nauseum, because they have JJ come on and try to get him to say if his brother is going to sign or not. His brother obviously wants to sign, unless he's thinking retirement. But I think this is a little early for retirement, although his brother did the same thing. He retired early, so his body didn't shut down on him. And I actually respect that. I think football players are going to start moving towards that entire ideal, because the game is so physical and so dangerous for people. And your increased, or chances of CTE by the end of your career obviously kills it too.
Well, while we're bringing up Pittsburgh, I wanted to swap over a little bit, because I know Justin Fields was all over media yesterday.
Yes, but hold on. Before we get to that, the Deebo Samuels trade was a 5th-round draft pick, just so for whoever was asking.
So, I mean, that was a way smaller contract that Tyreek is sitting on currently.
But that's what I'm saying is these players don't get swapped for picks that you really think they should be anymore.
It's all about collecting that money that they were going to have to pay.
It really is. And it's like I keep hearing this, and it really does take you a sec to think about it, but it's true. A 4th, 5th round draft pick, that's a starter in the NFL. That's still a starter. I think that there's a big stigma around late round draft picks, you're not that good. That's not necessarily the case anymore. Most of your starters are actually 3rd, 4th, 5th round draft picks. Now, stars, more than likely, the people you talk about the most, obviously come from the 1st round. But most of the time, those guys are the bigger busts.
And Tyreek was a 5th rounder.
Yeah, exactly. So it really, there are more value in these lower round draft picks than people really give credit for, including myself, because I'll use this as an example. When Atlanta let go of Julio Jones and traded him away, and we only got a 2nd round draft pick, I was livid. I said, excuse me, Hall of Fame Julio Jones, arguably the greatest wide receiver to ever play. Definitely the greatest wide receiver to ever play in Atlanta. I'd still put him up against Calvin Johnson.
What?
I really would. I still would do it. I know it's me being a homer, but I promise you right now, it's just the way he played. He could have been arguably the greatest of all time had he won a ring at the position. And no, I'm sorry, not the greatest of all time. He's not better than Jerry. Best in our generation for sure.
Of course.
100%. But that being the case, again, we got a solid pick with that 2nd round pick. I can't remember off the top of my head who it was right now, but he became a starter and was a solid player for us. So you get good things with these lower round picks.
We got another Steelers fan saying DK is going to be garbage. I have no idea why we picked him up.
Oh, hatred for DK already.
But
interesting.
No, while we were talking the Steelers stuff with TJ Watt, there was a lot of media with Justin Fields yesterday, and talking about his new start with the New York Jets, which is usually where quarterbacks go to die.
Mm-hmm.
But he had this to say about his fresh start with the Jets.
I mean, I think I was asked to, I did what I was asked to do, and I've never had a problem with that. I've always been a team player. I've always been, advocating on, putting, myself behind the team. So, like I said, I'm not really gonna get too much into depth on, what was happened in Chicago and what happened last year with Pittsburgh. But like I said, I'm grateful for all the experiences that I've had. I met a lot of great people there, built a lot of great relationships that'll last a lifetime. And, I think, of course, the more time you have in the league, the more experience you have. So, like I said, I think I'm progressing and getting better each and every year. So, like I said, I'm excited to get things rolling this year.
He's absolutely right. He did everything they had asked of him, and they still benched him. And that's why he came out saying yesterday as well that he never really felt comfortable in Pittsburgh, which is why I believe he didn't re-sign there. He could say that wasn't the choice or wasn't the reason. Personally, that was the reason.
I'm hearing a lot more and more because, as a fan, I'm thinking more of the Steelers being a great organization that's been around for years and years. And the more I'm hearing from former players that it seems like it's the opposite.
Right.
A lot of these players don't like Tomlin's coaching tendencies, his grit. And that might be another reason why, we haven't heard much of any quarterback signing over there.
Well, and that's also a possibility because that's why people believe that Aaron Rodgers and Tomlin wouldn't work together because their styles clash. I don't think that'd be the case. I think Aaron respects his head coaches enough to know, especially if he just chose to go there, that he would be able to work with you. But obviously he hasn't signed there yet, so that is all a moot point until he actually signs with Pittsburgh, if that even happens. I think it's kind of more like what we saw with the whole Denver Nuggets thing in Malone. When you have a coach nowadays who gets in you and really just like isn't afraid to chew you out on the field, some players can't handle that anymore. Mike Malone said it beautifully. They'll just go around and say, "Coach is tripping." Like, no,
Coach be tripping.
He's trying to make you better, and longtime athletes know that. Mature athletes know that. A coach wouldn't be yelling at you for no reason. And if he is yelling at you for no reason, why are you still playing there? You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those situations where I think some players are, for lack of a better word, getting softer. And it's just not a good look for coaches like Mike Tomlin because, again, I preach this every time this man's name comes up. He needs to be put in in the greatest coach of all time conversation. Guy's never had a losing season. He's won a Super Bowl. What else does this guy got to do to get on this dang list with you people? We all are so quick to put Bill in this conversation, but Bill sucked. Let's be honest. When Bill didn't have Tom, he sucked.
It's all Shula.
When he was the head coach of Cleveland, he sucked. When he was the head coach of New England without Tom Brady, he sucked.
You think he's going to suck in North Carolina?
Yeah, well, that's different. I think college is a different animal, and I think,
course.
honestly, it fits better for his style. So he may not, although I don't have a lot of faith coming out of the North Carolina Tar Heels in football. I don't know when this really started, that quarterbacks from North Carolina started becoming coveted. Never in my lifetime have I ever seen a quarterback from North Carolina, the Tar Heels. Like, we're talking basketball, sure. We're talking football, not so much.
Maybe he changes that.
And maybe he does. Maybe I'm wrong, but he's also not a quarterback guru. He's a defensive coach. So it really doesn't matter what he can do with the quarterback. At this point, though, right now, if we're going to put Bill Belichick in there, who has multiple seasons of sucking, granted, he's got multiple Super Bowl rings, which obviously leads those back out, but I still say Mike Tomlin deserves to be in that conversation.
Oh, of course. Who other coaches can you just list off your top of your head that always have winning seasons?
Not many.
No,
not many. And that's that's my point. Regardless if you hate the Steelers, does not matter. They have been a consistent winning program with Mike Tomlin. There's a reason that the Pittsburgh Steelers have only had 3 coaches in 20 years. Actually 20
longer.
plus years. Yeah, 30 years,
longer.
something like that. I can't even remember the exact timings. But there's a reason they've been the one franchise in the NFL that hasn't had coaching problems. It's because they have the gods. They have the people that know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So trust them. And that's why the only thing that I have criticized Tomlin about is this movement with Justin Fields.
I think it's the last few years after Roethlisberger retired. I think it's just kind of finding that groove again. Somebody that he can coach. Exactly. And that's why it's going to really depend on who they end up picking up. I think they end up drafting one. We've talked about that several times, and I don't know who's going to be. There's
the
plenty.
Likelihood of it being Shedeur Sanders is growing too.
And
around the
I've
NFL.
heard the rumors. I've also heard Dart. I've heard,
I've heard Will Howard.
It's only a couple weeks away, and I know they've set up visits for about 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the next week.
That's why I don't know if this signing of Aaron Rodgers is actually going to happen. I mean, we saw that he worked out with DK and all that, and that was clearly planned. But I think Aaron is very much grasping the possibility of just saying, you know what, I'm done.
Holding out.
Yeah, not even holding out, just saying I'm done. I don't want to play
I'm not sure
anymore.
if he retires. I think he might just, go off and be quiet for a couple months and do the NFL analyst type thing with
you
with
think
his
somebody
boys.
signs him as an analyst?
No, I think he'll just jump on
McAfee
and talk football until somebody needs him, and he'll jump out.
Oh, he won't jump out. He'll stay on. He'll stay he won't. Well, you mean full time? I'm
Yeah,
sorry. Oh,
that's what I'm
okay.
saying.
You mean like Darius Butler does it?
Mm-hmm.
That's a possibility. Actually, I could see that. I thought if we're talking more his weekly segments, I'm like, oh no, this boy will be there until the day he dies.
And I've heard over and over, if they don't find the guy that they want, they still have that opportunity to go get your boy Kirk Cousins. So
everybody has the possibility of going get Kirk Cousins. Please come get
that's
Kirk
what you're
Cousins.
hoping for.
Please come get Kirk
But
Cousins.
we'll talk a little baseball after this, and then we'll wrap up the show with NBA talk. There's plenty to talk about. We haven't talked Luka, which is insane.
Returns, man, and he tore up Dallas last night, as every fan in Dallas did exactly what we said yesterday. Cried in their seats as they saw their boy play in the purple and gold. So we'll get into that on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Early Bird Special right here on 101.1 FM, 1230 AM, ESPN Bakersfield, streaming live at espnbakersfield.com and on YouTube at the Early Bird Special. think I've heard this one. Welcome back to the Early Bird Special. I'm Chris Burdick. That's Sparky. Real quick, before we get to NBA news, we got a little bit of an update for you from the Masters. Rye currently leading the field at 4 under. Jaeger right underneath him at 3 under. Neiman, Scheffler, and Spieth, as well as Hatton, all tied for third at 2 under. Kim, Kirk, Langer, and the rest of the board, including Will Zalatoris, English, and many, many others, are currently sitting at 1 under. I do not believe, I'm searching for his name, I do not see McIlroy yet. He may not have teed off. But as it sits right now, the Masters are well underway. Go ahead and check that out on ESPN. It's all over the place. You can't really miss it from Augusta National today. It's the biggest day in golf, in my opinion. However, we got plenty to talk about in the world of basketball as Luka
one-on-one against Max Christie, driving toward the bucket. Luka got there, throws up a reverse. Good, and he's got 40. 40 points for Luka Doncic in his return to Dallas.
45.
105-93.
45, actually.
Finished 45.
Finished with 45. We all thought he was going to drop 60, realistically. We were talking in here at the AGM studios last night while watching the game periodically. He had 30 at halftime, and his return to Dallas was very, very emotional when they played his tribute video there in Dallas saying thank you to Luka. And it is a growing thing for the Dallas Mavericks fandom right now to essentially cheer, well, this. If you can't tell what that says, that's Fire Nico, which they're referring to their general manager, who apparently was the one that traded Luka away. I'm gonna throw something out here though, because this is a growing thought in myself, and I hear other people saying it as well. Although we blame the general manager for these moves because, yes, you are the final say, per se, in terms of the organizational side of it, the front office. Let's not forget who owns the Dallas Mavericks. And she doesn't exactly want to be in Dallas. So she could not care less about Luka Doncic or any of the situation in which they wanted. Again, I think this trade to LA was more driven by the ownership than it was the general manager, because any general manager would know Luka Doncic should not be traded.
No.
Ever. Are you nuts? The one kid that wants to be loyal to your franchise forever, and you want to get rid of him? Not to mention he's the one who led you to the finals last year, and you had no business being there at all.
And not only any team, but to the Lakers?
Exactly. This is the equivalent of Cleveland trading away LeBron after he had led them to the finals and got swept by the San Antonio Spurs. That was ridiculous. But again, we aren't in the front offices, so I don't know who has had the final say of all of this. I do have a skeptical belief, though, that it was the ownership that led to this. But regardless, the Lakers are benefiting from it in every way, shape, and form. LeBron ended the game as well, 27, 7 rebounds with 11 from 20. Luka again ended 45 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 steals.
As they clinched the playoffs.
Yep, clinched a playoff berth. They will not have to deal with the play-in situation, which is great if you're a Laker fan.
In Dallas. So that was just a perfect poet way to,
it really was,
to clinch the playoffs. And this is LeBron talking Luka being on the Lakers going into the playoffs.
I mean, he's battle tested. He's been in big moments. He's played in big moments throughout his whole career. Literally less than a year removed from the NBA Finals. So he knows what to expect. And that's great to have, that going into the postseason when you have guys that's been battle tested. He's special with it. So that's always a good feeling.
I'm telling you right now, Luka in the playoffs is going to be a problem for anybody that's facing the Lakers, especially with this chip on his shoulder that he's going to be going into this playoffs with, and the momentum that the Lakers are growing with. And at this point, LeBron's right. You need a guy like Luka to help lead this team, because obviously LeBron has had his years of doing so with Cleveland and with Miami, but age is catching up. He knows that he is in a better situation now with Luka essentially playing the position that he was playing, and he now gets to do the entire side that Anthony Davis was doing. And it's very interesting to watch this as well, because you hear people say this all the time on ESPN, but no one really breaks it down very well. If you watch the Mind the Game podcast now with Steve Nash rather than JJ Redick and LeBron James, I love the pod because it really does explain basketball very, very well at a fundamental level. And Steve Nash brought this up, and I thought it was great. But LeBron's able to do back cuts and set screens like he doesn't usually do, and all this other stuff that he was really forced not to do because he was running point the whole time. LeBron as a big man could be a problem in the playoffs because no one really is prepared for that. No one really has had time to really adjust their games to LeBron doing that.
Always having to run point and
Exactly.
have to pretty much run the court.
That was what the Nuggets really wanted Carmelo Anthony to get good at when he was younger, because Carmelo was fantastic with the ball in his hands, but Carmelo struggled with the ball out of his hands. If he didn't have the ball in his hands, he didn't really take cuts very well when he was younger. He didn't know how to get off screens easier. It wasn't until AI really came to the team that he really started to flourish without the ball in his hand. And I think this is what the Lakers are starting to see right now, is that LeBron is going to flourish without that ball in his hand. And Luka obviously flourishes playing at his pace.
Yeah, it's a perfect fit to let LeBron be LeBron without having to run the whole
Right.
damn team.
And you don't have to
go
sprint.
100.
You don't have to sprint up and down the court.
Exactly.
Like LeBron has actual time to rest on the offensive side. Now, whether that's going to increase the defensive side of the game, we'll see. But at this point right now, the Lakers look good, and so do their adversaries of the Clippers. Let's get to this real quick before we hit some other sound bites. The Clippers have now won their 6th win in a row, beating the Rockets last night 134-117. James Harden had 35 points, 10 assists. Leonard 22 and 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. And Zubac, the big man, with a triple-double, 20 points, 11 rebounds, and 10 assists.
I love that guy.
You know, we were just talking about this last week, giving Marcus Morris grief because he said the Clippers would be his next team out of the West outside of the outside of the Lakers, not mentioning the Thunder at all. And we both looked at it like he was nuts. This team is clearly making us look stupid because they are getting hot at the right time. Kawhi Leonard is actually healthy, which is a problem for people in the NBA.
Yeah, give him a couple days.
I'm just saying, at this point, though, what we see in the playoffs is going to be my biggest question with the Clippers, because James Harden has not had a good career in the playoffs. He usually disappears, or at least in my recent memory, he has not had a very good run in the playoffs. The other game that I want to mention as well is the Nuggets, who actually bust out of their losing streak after firing Coach Malone, beating the Kings last night, 124-116 behind Jokic's triple-double again. 20 points, 12 rebounds, 11 assists. Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan did everything they could, combining for 49 points apiece. However, there is now a growing think tank saying that Denver might be gaining another star next offseason in the form of Kevin Durant. Let's hear from Fortenbaugh on whether this could actually be a potential move for the Denver Nuggets in the offseason.
Sounds like for most people in Denver, a roster shakeup is coming. Insert Kevin Durant here. Here's a team that's looking to move assets. They've got assets that are credible that can move. Durant's going to be looking for a contender. Durant's going to look for a situation where I'd imagine he's not going to want to butt heads with another superstar. He's going to want to try to get along with someone. Could you imagine those two playing side by side?
It would be incredible. However, as we stated, Kevin Durant and his movements to different teams doesn't always work out like people hope it does. Although it would be fantastic to see the two of them play together, I'm not completely sold it would work out. However, I do agree with him that a roster shakeup is on the way. As we said yesterday when talking about Coach Malone, with the entire situation going on with him being fired, doesn't seem like a lot of the players in Denver actually want to be playing in Denver. There's not a lot of fire and love for the organization or the team as a whole. So a roster shakeup would not be out of the question. Now, real part of the question is, who do you give up for Kevin? Because Jokic ain't going nowhere. And
see, that's what the rumor, the big headline last night, if you were watching the Laker game, that was one of the main topics they were talking about. You know, with these big names being traded right before the deadline,
right?
Is the NBA into a point where nobody's safe? Anybody could be traded, and that is what exactly the question came up. And I can't remember right off my head, but who was doing the Laker game last night? But one of them said that he thinks Joker could be traded.
I don't see that happening. Like, unless they really want to just restart it. But you're right. I mean, the Luka trade showed us that nobody's safe anymore. Anybody can be traded. And I think a lot of the players are echoing that sentiment because no one saw Luka being moved.
And then the vibe that I got out of that was that they were pushing that everybody that watches the NBA wants to see Luka and Joker together. Whether that would be post LeBron or maybe the last year of LeBron.
Right.
But that might be something that to keep an eye on. I don't see it. I don't see Joker leaving, not only because he's the face of that team and he's the reason they have any revenue right now.
Yeah.
But
Jamal Murray.
I didn't expect Luka to be traded, and sure the hell wasn't expecting him to be teamed up in the Lakers uniform.
What we do know, the Phoenix Suns' entire experiment has failed. 100%. Booker and Beal and Kevin don't work, which I had been saying for years. But again, I'm not in the front offices of the NBA. So we know that there's movement coming from Phoenix's side. I can speculate that there's going to be movement coming from Denver's side just because of everything that we've seen in the last week. Memphis most likely will be another team moving around a lot of pieces in the offseason to try to get something around Ja Morant. But the movement of Joker doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to me. Now, movement on from guys like Michael Porter Jr., maybe Jamal Murray, although I would hate to see that because I think the idea, if you're Denver, of making a big three of your own with Jamal, Kevin, and Jokic is a much better idea than keeping a team of Aaron Gordon, Porter Jr., et cetera, what you have right now. And I think that's going to hurt them in the long run, though, because as we've seen with a lot of these teams that do trade for Kevin Durant or sign Kevin Durant, you have to give up a lot of pieces in the long run, and depth really wins at the end of the day for a lot of NBA teams. So it's going to be rough to see if anybody can get that to happen. However, let's move over real quick to the Eastern Conference because there's a couple talking points we can get to out of that, including the Knicks, who once again are really questioning if Tom Thibodeau's style of play is going to work in longevity. I'm going to tell you right now, it looks rough.
It does. And that is one of my favorite coaches.
Loved him
all time. But it always goes back to this. It happened in Chicago. It happened in Minnesota. And now it's happened in New York. That is my type of coach, but I'm not an NBA player and I'm not in this generation. I don't know if this type of defensive minded coaching works with the players once, or one is the players, and two, the pace of basketball these days.
I don't think is necessarily the defensive minded part of his game that they worry about. It's more of the minutes that he forces guys to play. When you have your starters, I know a lot of people complain and say
old school.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of teams right now won't play their starters past maybe 30 minutes, 32 at the most, which is just under 3/4 of the game. Thibodeau will most likely have his starters play up to 40. And it is not necessarily a bad sense of gameplay because you want your starters on the court as much as humanly possible, obviously, because they're the best players on your team. But when you tire these guys out over an 82-game season and then expect them to progressively get better in the playoffs, it doesn't work that way. This is like both sides of the load management argument.
If you have a full roster, maybe it helps. But what's bit him in the ass over the years is, I'll start with the Bulls because I watched a lot of those games. I'm talking 70, 80 games of those seasons. And it was fatigue in the playoffs.
Yep, every year.
Bit him every time.
And that's the issue that he's running into every year. And that's why I think that if he does run into that issue again this season, especially with the Villanova team that they put together, he might be on the way out. And honestly, I think they already have someone in mind to take over his spot. And I will just let Evan Cohen explain it because he said it beautifully the other day. But I think Mike Malone might be headed to New York.
Knicks lose in the first round. Everybody's like, well, they may have to fire Tom Thibodeau. And the rightful response is, okay, cool, present a problem. Where's the solution? And no one had the obvious solution until now.
There's a solution that's available.
Michael Malone is a New Yorker. through and through. He sounds like a New Yorker. He's been a Knicks assistant. His dad, may rest in peace, was with the Knicks for a while. Like, there's
a lot of ties.
There's so many Knicks things.
It's the Knicks get talked about ad nauseum on ESPN because most of the people there are obviously from New York and are Knicks fans. But it is a very good point that if Thibodeau sees an early exit from a number 3 seeded Knicks team who last season had some success, but obviously ran into the same issues that they always do with Thibodeau at the helm, which is fatigue issues, it would make sense for a franchise like the Knicks, who are done with being losers, to move on from Tom Thibodeau. And
I could see it.
Honestly, it's not a bad move in my opinion, because like we saw with Cleveland, as good of a coach as JB Bickerstaff is, and JB has been able to turn around a Detroit Pistons team that was awful a year ago and turn them into a playoff contender this year because they are in the playoffs. There are better ways to evolve your team with moving on from a coach. Obviously, we saw it with the Mark Jackson move with Golden State moving on to Steve Kerr. Jackson built the Splash Brothers, but Kerr built the championship. Okay, so you can progressively get better. And I think if Cleveland wins a championship this year, if big knock on wood there, if they could pull off a championship win this year, it'd be a good example of it as well, of moving on from JB Bickerstaff, the defensive minded guy, to Kenny, who's the offensive minded guy. And you just evolve your team that way. So maybe the Knicks are just one slight move away, move from a defensive minded Thibodeau to more of an offensive minded coach that could potentially take you over the top and finally get you that trophy that have eluded the Knicks for God knows how long.
I can see it. I love Tibbs. I mean, it really, this starts with how they do in the playoffs. Obviously, I mean, if they go a deep run, Tibbs is probably safer than normal, but that Malone fire might be just a perfect setup for him this offseason. But I mean, it's another thing is these coaches that are getting younger and younger and younger. I mean, if anybody's gonna hire somebody old school like Malone, it would be the Knicks. So I mean, I can see the perfect. I didn't think of it until I heard Cohen, and it just made me think of the old school Knicks. You know, growing up with John Starks and Ewing and Mason and all these guys. But we did have a text in that says I see the Celtics and Lakers in the finals, which
I think that's
thinking old school.
The NBA's dream is to see Celtics and Knicks in the championship every year, or Knicks and Lakers, or I'm sorry, Celtics and Lakers, not Celtics and Knicks. I'm dumb. Celtics and Knicks and the Eastern Championship. But
I'm seeing more of the Cavs, OKC Cavs.
We didn't get to talk about this a little bit yesterday, like we had spoken
planned,
off air, but the Cavaliers and the Oklahoma City Thunder are having a historic year in terms of wins and margin of victory, which usually leads to a good chance at winning the championship. Again, you know my thoughts about the Thunder. I still am somewhat skeptical. I need to see them produce in the playoffs and long term, but they could shut me up and make me a liar. I don't know. They could easily prove me wrong this season. I agree with your Lakers assessment. Although the Warriors are always going to be a monster and always going to be a problem, especially with this new starting five that is now 19-1. Jimmy Butler comes back healthy. Jimmy in the playoffs is a problem. It's going to be a much more competitive West Conference move than I think people think. Some teams, obviously, I expect to get bounced early. Your Denver Nuggets might be one of them now because of the situation that they're in this week. The Memphis Grizzlies will most likely be out early. But if you're a Laker fan, I think depending on where you line up in the standings right now and who you deal with in the first round, it's a very, very good chance you walk into a championship or at least a chance at the finals, because you do look good right now. I won't lie. Now, the Eastern Conference, I'm still going with my Cavs.
Of course.
110%.
I mean,
and this is
what kind of fan wouldn't?
Well, and this is me being a fan and also looking at it from a situation of watching basketball.
Boston's going to be tough.
Boston is tough. And Boston is another team that's also historically getting better at margin of victory as well. But Cleveland edges them out just barely. And honestly, I think Cleveland's coming with that chip on their shoulder of, you know what, man, we got bounced by the Knicks 2 years ago. We got bounced by the Celtics last year. I'm tired of losing to these teams. And Evan Mobley has increased his game exponentially between these last 2 years. Jared Allen's finally being back to being.
I think we'll see the rematch in the Eastern Conference Finals.
I agree, and I think it's going to be probably one of the better Eastern Conference matchups
that we've
of
seen
the year.
in years.
I agree, and the Cleveland Cavaliers taking on the Pacers tonight. That'll be a good indicator of how the playoffs will go. Not 100% sure if Donovan Mitchell will be on the court. I would assume that most likely not, as the Cleveland Cavaliers have locked up the number 1 seed, and it looks like them and the Celtics might be resting their stars for the next couple games in preparation for the playoffs. So whether that works or not, though, we will see. As we talked about yesterday, rust is a real thing, especially playoff rust. So,
and before we wrap up and go to our final break and talk a little baseball to wrap up the show, there was some good news. Grizzlies' Jalen Wells is out of the hospital.
Fantastic.
He will miss an extended period of time, obviously,
naturally,
with the broken wrist, but it is always good to hear something is as good as getting released from a hospital.
Oh, and yes, and I don't believe anything actually came out of that. I believe they ruled it to be a mistaken play, and also the technical foul that was awarded to Luka the other day, by the way, expunged by the NBA.
Rescinded.
But
he could have probably, if they wouldn't have.
Real quick though, before we go to break,
he would have won that game probably.
Maybe this is something that I should have went on the couch for. We're gonna sit here and focus more on Luka's tech than officiating the jaw situation.
Yes,
really? Like that shows me how much you really care.
And if he wouldn't have got that tech and the Lakers would have won that game, they would have locked it in a day early, not on national television the next night when he was returning to his old team.
Peculiar.
So isn't it ironic how it all works out?
Are we starting
perfectly?
Conspiracy theories here, Mr. Sparky?
Just saying.
I know.
Isn't it cute how it worked out perfectly?
That is a very valid point. And honestly, the first tech he got was questionable too, to be honest.
And they announced it like 15 minutes before tip-off. Like,
and he technically had never been ejected in a basketball game up until that point too. He said that in the post-game press conference.
I heard something funny right after our show on Eisen's show yesterday. They were saying that the Mavericks should have hit up that tattooed face guy to be at the game yesterday or last night.
Courtside tattoo guy, as he calls himself in Oklahoma City. And I agree with him. Put that boy on the sideline every single playoff game, because if he's going to get guys like Luka to jaw back at him, that helps your team in every way, shape, and form. So I say I'll go for it.
I'm Sparky. That's Burdick. You're listening to the Early Bird Special. We'll wrap up right after this break. ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM.
How are you this morning?
Hey. That's it. There's not a lot of better ways.
Our video streamers don't know, but this is Lincoln Park. That's why verdicts are bobbling his head with a bobblehead.
And you can't let me do that because I will listen to the whole dang song. I'm sorry.
But speaking of bobbleheads and figures,
Yes.
we haven't mentioned, but LeBron has his Barbie doll. Okay, it's a Ken doll, but Barbie,
Regardless,
Ken, whatever.
Barbie, he is now part of the Barbie universe. LeBron James is the best basketball player in Barbie's world. Come on now.
He can be a goat in that world.
Yes, he can. Yes, he can. But at this point right now, he is the only pro athlete ever to have his own Ken doll, which is strikingly resembling.
Strange.
It's very
Is that
striking.
going to be the new thing?
But it might be. Honestly, I was thinking about this too. Because you know what my generation never really got that you guys and the Gen Xers and above got were, you remember those action statues?
Oh, yeah.
That used to be all over the place. Your Michael Jordan's hanging up a dunk, stuff like that.
Mhm.
My generation never really got those. It wasn't like a big thing for millennials to go out and find those. Although I always found them to look really, really cool. I always knew my uncle had a whole bunch of them and they were really cool to look at. This might be the next generation of that. I mean, I could see athletes getting their own lines of, I guess, action figures, for lack of a better term.
Was it fatheads you're talking about?
Fathead? No, fatheads are what went on the wall.
Was that your generation?
That was my generation. We had the big stickers that went on your wall called fatheads. No, I'm talking about the little. The best way to put it is it's like a statue or an action figure of an athlete,
like the big head ones.
Right? Maybe it was
Kind
Big
of.
Head then. Maybe it's the same company.
I'm
and
just
I'm
trying
just
to
not
think
thinking.
because I mean, the closest we got to Ken dolls is we got Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, there you go. Honestly, that would have been the best Ken doll.
Exactly.
You could
I
change
would
his
have bought that
hair.
one.
You could give him new tattoos. Come on, baby.
Change his hair color. Yeah.
The Dennis Rodman Ken doll. We need to get that one and say we need to make that one a thing. But at this point, it might be. What in the heck are we looking at here? There is a bunny to your right. That is a
Lord.
horrific sight. I'm not sure who this is.
It's Bunny Jay.
Oh, it's Jay. Jay Reed with his Easter Bunny's costume. That was wild. I wish we had a video on that one. This is now twice today.
Find Hot 94.1 on Instagram because I
Twice
guarantee you that
today.
video is coming up very soon.
2 times today, I've been distracted by some wild thing happening outside my window.
There's
Anyways,
so much things going on. So I'm going to throw in this 2 quick ones because I know you're not going to touch these ones. I know Dodger fans has been ripping me for the last since the show has started because you're sitting there with the Phillies fan and you don't give any Dodgers love. Well, the Dodgers bounced back in a big way to wrap up the road trip. And the second one I was going to bring is I heard this on Kerr's show the other day when Cody Bellinger got food poisoning from wings.
I did bring this up that he's sworn off chicken wings.
So he's sworn off the
sworn
wings.
off chicken
and
wings.
Trust me, as a big wing guy, I've been there, brother. I've been there. There's nothing worse than getting food poisoning when it's wings.
Oh, man. Well, just food poisoning in general.
Yes,
Food poisoning
it is horrible,
sucks.
man.
I felt so bad for him when it came out they had food poisoning. And just for you Dodger fans, I don't give Dodgers love.
I knew it was going to start that.
What? I have one promo where I say you guys sound entitled, and now you're definitely sounding entitled.
Yes.
You want me to, you know what? Just for that, every day we're going to come out with a Dodgers score. Every single day, whether you guys win or lose. And then that way you can't say I don't give Dodgers
I
love.
posted on our Instagram that the Padres were the first team to get 10 wins.
Absolutely.
An hour later at
And
Dodgers.
guess what happened?
We've got 10 wins too.
And I got a text
I get
message
it,
from
I
my
get it.
best friend who's a Dodger fanatic saying, Really? You had to post that? I didn't post that, bub. That wasn't me.
Blame it on me.
That was Spark. So
It's
don't
funny
act like it's just me.
Because some of our Instagram messages, which is the Early Bird Special Official on Instagram and Facebook, but they don't know if it's me or you.
And that's for good
so
reason.
Sometimes it helps when I'm talking trash to a Dodger
Honestly,
fan
if
and
you
he
follow
thinks
our
I'm
personal
you.
accounts, mine is Bird1517. Feel free to follow me. Also, I believe
Pins up 84.
Pins up 84. If you see our actual stories, you can tell who's posting on our YouTube page or on our Instagram page for the Early Bird Special as well. But real quick before we get out of here, we have 2 stories coming out of baseball that we have to mention. Vladdy Guerrero Jr.'s contract extension. At least the details have come out, and the man has had the biggest signing bonus I've ever seen in my entire life. $325 million of his $500 million contract was a signing bonus, which means the Toronto Blue Jays only have to pay $175 million for the next 14 years to keep the player, which makes a lot of sense.
It makes a lot more
sense because we talked about that. It's a small market team. It didn't make a lot of sense. Also, prayers out to legendary Pedro Martinez and his family, who apparently were part of that massive roof collapse in the Dominican Republic. His family is still missing.
Yeah, it's the toll is up to 184 people that were killed. And he came out yesterday, said the family is still missing, and he hopes that they are not in the rubbles. But catch us tomorrow. We'll have Bolt Brady and much, much more on our Friday show, the Early Bird Special. I'm Sparky.
I'm Burdick. We'll catch you tomorrow. Spark, let's get out of here.